Right now, somewhere on Earth, a kiss is happening. But here's something that should bother you. Nearly half of all human cultures throughout history never kissed at all. Not romantically, not as a greeting, not even between parents and children. So if kissing isn't natural, isn't instinct, isn't hardwired into who we are, why does it feel like the most human thing in the world? You'd think kissing is universal. Every movie ends with one. Every culture you've probably been exposed to treats it as the default expression of love. But in 2015, anthropologist William Jankowiak led a study across 168 cultures worldwide, and the results didn't match the assumption. Only 46% of those cultures showed any evidence of romantic sexual kissing at all. More than half had no kissing tradition whatsoever, not because they didn't have love, not because they didn't have intimacy. They simply expressed it differently. Some cultures rub noses, some press foreheads together, some don't touch faces at all, and instead exchange gifts or perform specific gestures of closeness. So the first thing this rules out is the easy explanation, that kissing is some universal biological reflex, coded into every human on Earth the same way blinking or swallowing is. If kissing were instinct, every human culture, isolated or not, would have discovered it independently, the same way every culture discovered fire or eventually invented some form of a blade. But that's not what happened, which means kissing isn't hardwired, it's learned. So where did it actually come from? Here's where the story gets interesting. The earliest confirmed written reference to kissing doesn't come from Europe, it comes from ancient India. In 2022, a team of researchers led by Dr. Troels Pank Arbel and Dr. Sophie Lund Rasmussen published a paper in the journal Science tracing kissing back to Bronze Age Mesopotamian texts, dated to around 2500 BCE. Clay tablets describe kissing in both romantic and platonic contexts, between lovers, but also as a sign of respect and submission. That pushed the origin of documented kissing back over 1,000 years earlier than historians previously assumed, and it suggests something important. Kissing wasn't invented once. It likely developed independently in multiple early civilizations, which makes it a cultural technology, not a biological one, spreading and mutating the way language or agriculture did. But if it's learned, not instinctive, that raises the obvious question, where did the impulse come from in the first place? Because you have to start somewhere. Nobody invents an activity from nothing. Here's the leading theory. Primatologists have observed something remarkably close to kissing in our closest living relatives. Chimpanzees and bonobos press their mouths together during moments of reconciliation after conflict, and during close social bonding. Frans de Waal, one of the most respected primatologists alive, has documented this behavior extensively in bonobo troops. It's not sexual, it's not romantic, it's a calming, trust-confirming gesture, mouth-to-mouth contact used to de-escalate tension and reaffirm social bonds. Which means the raw behavior, mouth contact as an intimacy signal, may predate humans entirely. What we did was take that ancient primate gesture and layer meaning on top of it. Romance, ritual, submission, respect. The mouth contact came first. The story we tell about it came later. And there's a biological reason mouth contact specifically became the vehicle for that story. Your lips contain one of the highest concentrations of sensory nerve endings anywhere on your body, comparable in density to your fingertips. When two people kiss, both brains release a cocktail of chemicals. Dopamine, the same reward chemical triggered by food and addiction. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone released during childbirth and breastfeeding, and a drop in cortisol, your primary stress hormone. In other words, kissing isn't just symbolic, it's a direct chemical bonding mechanism, and evolution didn't need to build kissing from scratch. It just needed to repurpose a body part already wired for intense sensory feedback. But there's a theory that goes even deeper than chemistry, and it comes from evolutionary psychologist Gordon Gallup. In 2007, Gallup published research suggesting kissing may have originally functioned as a mate assessment tool. When you kiss someone for the first time, you're gathering an enormous amount of information in seconds. Their scent, their taste, subtle chemical signals related to genetic compatibility and immune system diversity. Studies have shown people are subconsciously more attracted to partners whose immune system genes, specifically something called the MHC complex, differ from their own, because genetically diverse offspring tend to be healthier. Your nose and your tongue may be running a compatibility test you're not even aware of. Gallup found found that a majority of people in surveys across cultures reported that a bad first kiss could immediately end their attraction to someone, even if everything else about that person seemed right, which means kissing isn't just affection. It might be an evolved screening test disguised as a romantic gesture. So here's what we actually have: a physical gesture borrowed from our primate ancestors, a nervous system already wired to make that gesture feel intensely rewarding, and a psychological layer on top of that, using the gesture to silently evaluate a potential partner. 3 separate systems stacked on top of each other, all firing at once every single time you kiss someone. And that's why it doesn't feel casual, even when it's brief. Your brain is doing chemical bonding, genetic screening, and social signaling, all in the same 3 seconds, and it's been quietly running that same evaluation since long before humans existed, to name it. Which brings us back to that first fact, the one that should still be bothering you. If kissing were purely instinctive, every culture would do it. They don't, but if it were purely learned with no biological foundation, it wouldn't feel like anything. It wouldn't trigger dopamine, oxytocin, and a drop in cortisol in a fraction of a second. It wouldn't feel involuntary the first time it happens to you. The truth is, kissing sits in a strange middle ground. The raw material, mouth contact as intimacy, is ancient, older than our species, but the meaning we've built on top of it, romance, culture, ritual, is something we constructed, and different groups of humans constructed it differently or didn't construct it at all. So the next time you kiss someone, know that you're doing 2 things at once. You're performing a cultural ritual that half of human history never invented, and underneath that ritual, your body is running a chemical and genetic evaluation older than language itself. It was never just a kiss, it was your ancestors' oldest trust signal, wearing a costume your culture handed it.